guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Wednesday, January 4th. Jason Fulmore, SE Wrestle. And today, we've had a ton of wrestling over the last month, and Fat and Scrappy's Lucas DeSilva finally jumped back on the line with me and updated his team rankings, and we spent a whole hour breaking down the new team rankings. They haven't changed a ton, but we do talk a little bit about the duels a little bit more than individual because Georgia starts their state duel series this weekend. It just seemed like the perfect time. So if you don't want to listen to the full hour, and I don't know why anyone would want to listen to Lucas and I talk for a full hour about each of the different classifications, you can go in the description and click the link to the timestamp, and it will jump ahead to that classification. We start at 1A, and that actually doesn't start until almost 14 minutes into our conversation because we do a little bit of background talking about a few things before we get to the actual breakdown of the top 10. So if you don't want to hear those things, just jump to your classification, jump around, figure out what you want to hear, see if you agree, see if you disagree. Obviously, the rankings are based on a lot of information, but as Lucas does talk about at the very beginning, we are limited on our knowledge because so much of it is not publicly available, and we simply don't know pieces of information. So anyway, I probably will not do a what to watch this weekend, so I want to go ahead and make sure that I let everybody know. If you don't get a chance to head to Nashville, probably the single best tournament this weekend is the Drennan tournament at Father Ryan in Tennessee. It is a collection of really, really good programs from all over the Southeast. So if you want to see some wrestling and some really, really good wrestling at that is definitely the place to be in the Southeast. Otherwise, I know North Carolina's getting back in the swing of things. South Carolina as well, although I thought somebody told me they were starting their dual series, but I can't seem to locate those dates and who's starting and who's not. And then I do know that Georgia, Alabama, and Florida are all beginning their, or have already begun, honestly, their state dual series. And this weekend is actually a really important, another important step in that process. And I think they are going to wrap up theirs in their state dual tournament is just about 2 weeks away. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time. Jump ahead to the classification you're most interested in talking or hearing us talk about. And as always, we appreciate you watching. And leave some feedback. Let us know what you think. And best of luck to everyone. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Lucas DeSilva. See ya. All right. We are back with Lucas DeSilva, Fat and Scrappy's Lucas DeSilva, who I just saw not too many days ago because we were at the knockout together. But many of you may not have seen him, and he's been kind of grinding through some numbers, trying to come up with some new rankings, right?
A lot of numbers. Of course, a lot of numbers. And first off, thank you for having me back on once again. And if you guys don't know how good of a human being this gentleman is, let me explain to you. No. Whether you like it or not, you're getting this. You're getting your flowers, whether you like it or not. His middle, was it your youngest or middle daughter that picked me up?
My middle daughter.
His middle daughter was asked to pick me up and drive me down to Florida because him and his family did their little Christmas festivities in Florida at his parents' house. She drove me. He got me a hotel room for the night of the knockout. And then I stayed the night at his parents' place. And they invited me graciously and opened me into their home and gave me a bed for the Christmas festivities, flowers, and thank you once again. It's one of my favorite memories for a Christmas I've ever had in my life because your family are a hoot. Although his house is just as neat as it looks from his little background there. So I got to see the famous Fillmore background. So that was kind of cool. But seriously, thank you for that. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. No, you and Jake did a great job at the knockout and announcing.
Shout out to him.
I thought it was I thought it was really good. The ability to kind of have different perspectives, and a Georgia guy and a Florida guy. Now we obviously were missing a state or two because there was West Virginia there and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. But you guys did a great job and I went back and
I don't know,
listened to it, and I thought you did a really good job.
I don't know, Jake's awesome. He was really cool to work with, and I had heard his name, but I'd never actually met him before. So it was cool to put a name to a face, and on the side have some talks about his time at Tampa Prep and
Hmm.
careers. He's a really cool guy, and he also did a fantastic job. And first time on the mic, he said. So if that was his rookie. If he was a debutante, then hell, he really knocked it out of the park. That was awesome to work with him.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're back because we had a preseason team rankings. We had a Turkey Day team rankings, although we didn't talk during the Turkey Day
Yeah,
team
yeah,
rankings.
I just released those, but you
And
forgot the preseason.
oh, right, preseason way back in August.
Preseason.
And now we have New Year's rankings, and these are team rankings. And I think the thing that I want to start with is Lucas has been, working on these and doing different things. And one of the things that I've been complaining about for a long period of time is the information, or sometimes the lack of information, that we get through track wrestling, through lots of different sources and everything else. And Lucas, can you just speak to a little bit of a frustration that you have as it relates to some of that?
So this is where, and I'm not going to throw names and blast anybody directly, even though the more spiteful side of me wants to. I'm not going to do that because I realize that probably politically it's not the best thing to do. But being when I was a wrestler, people like Jason and Georgia Grappler and certain people would miss a result or two, and a ranking would be off. And me and my friends, we'd all be like, they don't know anything. But now being on the other side of it, actually doing it, I see what they've been talking about, and I'm going to take a moment to kind of. I'm more willing to open my mouth than you are. That's just I'm more the big man of the two of us, so I'm going to say it if no one else will. What I don't like is I get flack from people, and they tell me, "Oh, I beat him at this tournament. I beat him." I'm like, it's not on track. It's not on flow. I'll do you one better. There were about 15 tournaments I heard about this weekend in the state of Georgia, or events, dual tournaments, whatever. About 5 of them I could find brackets for. 6.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 6. What am I supposed to do with that? Because there are teams on here that I rank because they're good enough. We've seen them at 1 or 2 events throughout the year, peppering tournaments with some good results. But we don't see them for a month, basically. Is really tough to gauge. And then weigh-ins. Thank you to the guys at Brunswick for helping me get the right weigh-ins review. Shout out and Scalo and the crew. They're just some awesome people. They reached out and said, "Hey, I think you're missing out on some weigh-ins," and they showed me where I had a couple guys like 3 weight classes off. So shout out to them. But in the future, if you're going to give us flack, your events better have internet support, or I'm on you. Like, this is your one warning where I'm not going to start blasting people. But if I get one more DM from a coach who hosted a 12-team dual tournament without any online support, it's ramps. It's up for people at this point. I'm giving you a
Well,
warning now.
well, and honestly, it's not even that. Like,
I'm saying if you're going to talk, if you're
so
going to be
I
one of the
know, I
ones
know,
to, yeah.
but like Cole Mountain, right? Cole Mountain wasn't, that tournament was not on track or anything along those lines. But we got sent the brackets, right? We
Yes.
have the
That's what I
information.
mean by online support. Just
So
something.
so if you're not going to run it because you don't want it run on track for whatever reason, then at least share the information so that, I mean, because what we're doing here is, this is all about promoting the sport and trying to talk about it so that people have an idea of what's going on.
Exactly.
It's not really, I mean, we're not trying to do anything different than try to promote the sport, try to make it better.
And I
And
think that's the key to this is like I'll throw out a positive. Jess Wilder has not said a word to me about my rankings because there are kids that I had to look up of Cam, and I'm like, ooh, I'm off on where they're weighed in, but he hasn't said a word. And I give him the credit because he hasn't went anywhere where there were a lot of results on track. Because he likes to be a little more secretive with his lineup, and that's fine. But I appreciate that if you're gonna wrestle without results beyond that, that's fine. But then I don't want you coming to me and Jason getting uppity because we have guys not in the right spot. But that's like when you said with Cole Mountain, they sent you the brackets. That's all I mean. Epstein from Greenbrier, he sent me the brackets for
Iron
Iron
Maiden.
Maiden.
Hmm.
Yeah, he sent me those brackets. Shout out to him. Like if you host a tournament without online, that's fine. Just send us the results if you would be so kind. If you're gonna have an issue with rankings, which we're just doing which is why I said on Twitter, we're doing our best with what we got. Like it that's all. I just wanted to make that clear because I feel like some of the media guys sometimes y'all get flack and it's right. And including me, like there are times that someone will say something and I'm like, you're probably right. But then there are other times that we get something and I'm like, oh, bollocks. Like, what are you talking about? Wait a second. So I just had to kind of float that one out there. There's
I
a
agree
little
with you.
warning shot.
All right, so like you did in the preseason and the pre-preseason and so on and so forth. You give one team ranking, like it's not duels or
Yeah.
individual. It is a top 10 of the teams. But we're going to we're going to we're getting ready to start this week into the dual state tournament and
Mhm.
area duels, and then we build off of that and so
Yeah,
on
of
and so
course. Yeah.
forth. So one of my questions for every class as we go through these is going to be kind of give me a peek a little bit about the duels more than the
Okay.
individual. All right.
So
So
let me so
mhm.
obviously that's gonna be I kind of expected you to go that route. Let's say it now. Are we gonna do what we did last year for duels? Or are we gonna do our state duels previews? I'm in
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. That sounds great. But
Yay.
I mean, this will
Yeah.
be before
I
area
wanted to figure
duels.
out my schedule. That was more of a scheduling question. Are we doing that? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Well, I plan on doing it. I hope
Oh,
you're going to
I'm
join
in.
me.
I'm in. We just got shout out Dodge into the crew of Bruton Parker as our guys are revving up our A guys that are revving up for a couple more big dual meets at home, Kaiser Life,
Mhm.
Southeastern at home, and conference and stuff. It's I'm really excited what we've seen from our guys. Shout out Dodgens, shout out Warren, John Chuck, John Whiting, who has jumped into a coach role and has absolutely flourished. I love seeing John in the corner. It's awesome. Just I'm really excited for what we got going on at Bruton Parker and getting ready for my comeback as we try to get more healthy. I don't know if it's going to be in the season. We'll see. Weight, health, but for sure though, 2023 I'm back and I'm excited. I
All
got
right.
cleared up. I got my ankle cleared, so there's one. We're getting healthier. We're figuring it out.
Well, that's good. It's a process, right?
Man, it's,
All right. So let's start let's start let's start down in 1A. How does
oh,
that sound?
I knew you were going to do that. I had the 1A tab pulled up. I knew you were going to do that. You can't
All
trick
right.
me, Mr. Fullmore.
So I'm going to go with the top 10. I'm going to just go ahead and mention these. And then I want to kind of delve into them just really quick. We're going to spend very little time actually talking on each classification since there are so many. No comments. All right, let's go. Number 1, Social Circle. 2, Pisgah. 3, Tryon. 4, Commerce. 5, Pepperell. 6, Scriven County. 7, is that St. Francis?
Yes, sir. St. Francis, 7th.
Number 8, Oglethorpe. Number 9, Elbert County. And number 10, Stade County. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So when I was looking over the 1A, um, from your Turkey Day rankings and so on and so forth, I didn't really see much change,
No,
right?
the only real change was you had St. Francis after a really solid result at the knockout. Obviously, Jace got himself a real good run, and a couple of the other guys
Mm-hmm.
they jumped Oglethorpe. But I think it's fair to say that 1A is headlined by its top three. And the gap has closed, but it's also widened from Commerce, if you notice. Tryon, Pisgah, and Soul Circle all earned points in the past couple weeks. Commerce has stayed where they are. And I think if we're going to talk about duels, like you mentioned a minute ago, I don't necessarily want to say this is a two-horse race, but I think duels specifically, I think Social Circle and I think Pisgah are most primed to make a run for that trophy. I
Yeah.
just I think Tryon and Commerce, they're better opportunities come individually.
So I'm glad you brought that up. For some context for everyone, if you haven't been following super closely, Tryon went up to McCallie and won. It was a traditional tournament though. A Social Circle went over to Heart of Dixie over the last few days and won Heart of Dixie over there.
Mhm.
Pisgah's been everywhere. Down at
Had
Knockout, pretty
had
much
a
every.
fantastic showing at the knockout. Guys like Marley, Doherty, had just Tyler Nelson, just had a really good couple results from the knockout to the guys at Pisgah. And that really brought them within basically within point striking distance of Social, a 0.6 point difference between them and the Redskins, the top of 1A. It brings them within striking distance. And I remember at the start of the year the chirping I was getting from the Pisgah crew of how they were going to be more in the 2 range than the 3-4, and I wanted to see it. I made it clear I wanted to see it, and once again, Tryon is getting, or not Tryon, Pisgah is getting ready to set them up to make myself eat my words if they make a run again, which they did 2 years ago. So I'm kind of like, they might just make me eat my words.
All right. So last question for 1A. The last question I have for 1A is there a team down in that top 10 that is a much better dual team than a traditional team that we might see do really well, at least over the next few weeks in the duels part of the state?
The team that I'm fascinated by is Elbert because so 4.5 is their total power score. 2.8 of their points, though, do come from duels, which puts them at about 6, 7 range in 1A. But when we look at certain teams like Screven, Pepperell, dare I even say Commerce, there are certain parts of their lineup where they have some liabilities. And you wonder if the crew at Elbert, who we know to be a really solid staff, could they maybe exploit those? I think Elbert is. I'm not going to say that they're going to go snag a trophy. I'm not going as
No, no,
far as
no.
to say
Right.
that. But
Right.
you want a team that is outside of my top 8 that I think could really make a run to the state duels and maybe further. And the other thing is, since we don't even know the sectional duels draws yet, it's really, we're talking hyperbolic right now because we don't know. For all we know, Tryon and St. Francis are going to be together at sectionals. And if that's the case, it's a rough draw for St. Francis. Like that's, we
Right.
don't know yet. But
Right.
if just outside looking in, everything being equal, I think Elbert is the most fascinating team in 1A when you get outside of that top tier of 1A. I think very intrigued by them.
All right. So let's jump to 2A. And your top 10 are for the New Year's top 10 are
Yep.
Rockmart, number 1, Fannin County 2, Toombs County 3, Pierce County 4, Banks County 5, Cook, then Model, Elka, Eagles Landing Christian
Christian
Academy,
Academy.
right? Vidalia, and Northeast. And again, it looks pretty stable from your Turkey Day rankings. I think
Yep.
the only change was Pierce County and Banks County. Is that correct?
Uh, yeah, Banks dropped. They might have dropped actually a couple spots. I gotta look real quick. They're at 5th. They were no, they only dropped one. I had them higher at the start of the year. And I will say East Jackson is 0.1, so they're in my 11th position. But for the most part, 2A is exactly the same. There's been some changes though, point wise. Rockmart has gone up a couple points. Fannin County followed them as well after a good couple results. I think those are your top 2 teams in 2A. I think rather clearly both duels and traditional. While Toombs is a solid outfit, as is Pearson Banks, I do think that when it comes to duels specifically, I'm really looking at. I think Rockmart is in the driver's seat, but Fannin has some solid kids. I think they could put up a very solid effort, though.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw it, but did you see the Cass Rockmart Gorilla
Match.
duels? Yeah, match.
Well,
The single
which
match.
that is some Mortal Kombat stuff if I've ever seen it. And I'm not gonna
So
say
hang on. You got to explain it because not everybody's seen it. So explain it. Do you know it, or do you want me to explain it?
I know I was given the story from Georgia Grappler, which is they get to the finals of Guerrilla Warfare and they decide to bump TK Davis, 226 pounds, to wrestle Jacob Krabs in a super match that is a fantastic bout. Georgia Grappler posted it. Go watch that match. If you haven't already, shame on you. Go watch that match. It's a fantastic match. And I decided to duel meet. There was one match, and that was it. Which, like I said, that is some Mortal Kombat stuff if I've ever heard it. We got two studs, throw them out there, whatever happens, happens. Which I don't know if I really like it. It's interesting, but Traps took the match in overtime, which is a really good result for TK Davis, in my opinion, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people would have probably expected Craps to handle that match a little bit more. I have been super high on TK Davis, so I was not surprised by that result. But yeah, it's interesting what they did.
Yeah.
I was very confused by it at first, and then Cody explained, or the one of my guys explained it to me.
So I think that one reason for that was that they had already wrestled a duel earlier in the year.
That yeah, that might have
So
been.
that's why they went with just a single match. Both had won their pool, were 4-0 in their pool. So, you know, but it's interesting, certainly. All right. So let's jump to 3A. In 3A, number one, Gilmer. 2 is Columbus. 3 is Lumpkin County. 4 is Ringgold. 5 is Franklin County. 6 is White County. 7 is Adairsville. 8 is Bremen. 9 is Pickens County. And 10 is Morgan County. Again, very similar in terms
Yep.
of what you got. I think Ringgold and Franklin County switch spots. But
Ringgold had a
we still see Gilmer and Columbus at the top.
boy that score is getting closer and
Yeah, and
closer as the
that's
year.
the thing I was going to bring up.
It's getting closer. I will say Gilmer's advantage in duels is still there. It's Columbus's tournament results that have really at the knockout win, and Secoy had a really good couple results, as well as some other guys that they have throughout the lineup. I think Gilmer is the looking like the better dual team. But Columbus, obviously, when you got Secoy and Win in the crew, you can make something happen. That's not surprising to anyone. But I think Columbus's opportunity is more in February. Which, by the way, I'll come up with a catchier name for New Year's rankings. I'll come up with a better name than just New Year's. So I'll before anyone says anything, I'll figure something in. Yeah, and then Ringgold had a real good couple results, and they jumped. Not only did they jump Franklin, but they jumped up enough points where they're now only 0.5 behind Lumpkin. They're a 0.2 behind Columbus. Ringgold has really shown me that they're a little bit closer to that top 3 than I thought they were, and I think it's going to make for a very interesting January to see how some of these dual sectionals break. I'm fascinated by, because you look at the areas and you could start doing some mental gymnastics of who might go where.
Hmm.
And it's very possible we could see a Daresville Frank or in a Daresville Ringgold perhaps with a spot state tournament on the line. And
Yeah.
boy, that right there is fascinating. Something of that nature.
All right. So my question to you is just like in 1A, and we skipped 2A, but that's okay. In 3A, it- Gilmer, you mentioned them being a duels team. Is there a team lower in the top 10 that's a better duels team than they are a tournament team?
I don't know how low you would consider this, but in number 6, White County has shown me more in solid dual results than individual results. So if there's going to be a team that I think would come out of nowhere, it
Mhm.
would be White County. And the thing is, in a classification like 3A, they could take a trophy. if they have the right duel. Like it's possible if they get the right matchups against. And it's funny. I think they match up really well against Lumpkin. Now I think Lumpkin is a better team, in my humble opinion, but White could match up with them and really make some noise. And to just real quick hop back to 2A, my dual team there would be Cook. I think
Okay.
Cook is very similar to White, where if they get the right matchups, they could really make some noise.
All right. So let's jump to 4A. Number 1 is Lovett. 2 is Chastity. 3 is Sonoraville. 4 is West Florence. 5 is Heritage. Is that right? Am I right? Yeah.
Heritage.
6 is Central Carroll. 7 is North Oconee. 8 is Walnut Grove. 9 is Troop. And 10 is North Hall. Now, how I don't know about you, but for me, the Loveteers have been super impressive over the last few weeks. And
First off, I was gonna say shout out to Perry and East Hall, though. They were knocking on the door of the top 10. But Loveteers, you stole that from me. Okay.
I did a little bit, but we got to see them up close and personal at the knockout. They wrestled exceptionally well. They came back just this past couple days and wrestled really well. Took second at the Prep Slam. They just look like a state championship team.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to. This is not a bash anybody in 4A, because I actually think Lovett is the type of team that, when I explain my rankings to people, if you're above an 8.5, that to me says you can compete across the Southeast, and they have an 8.8. And with results at the knockout and the Prep Slam, they show that they can compete across the Southeast and hang with some of the best of them. Guys like Hyman, Kusky, Mance, I'm forget Bell, Smythe. Like, they have a crew, and this is a really special group for Lovett. And a lot of them are young, and yes, they have some guys leaving, but Maldonado has made a formula for winning, and it looks to be that this formula will hold for years. Like, this is, we talk about dynasties in Georgia, and I think that the word gets thrown around a little too much. Like, teams win 2 titles and they're a dynasty. Hold your horses. You want to talk about a team that looks like, I mean, Lovett might be that kind of team where, let's look back in 5-6 years, they might just be something that we would look at as dynastic. I'm not crowning him yet, but they look like it, they act like it, they talk like it, like they walk the walk and they talk the talk. And
well, I will say that the environment of the knockout didn't seem to knock them off balance. They
not whatsoever.
They looked ready to compete, and they they had some good results, and they also had some results where they probably felt like they should have done better. But but as a whole, as a team, they look really good. And especially, and now let's talk a little bit about duels. As a dual team, they look really good. I mean, they don't have holes.
No, they don't. No. They wrestle 14 weights. And again, I think it's a testament to Maldonado. And of course, he has talented guys. So let's not make this seem like he's made these guys. These are some talented kids that he has. But he's taken them and he's been able to put them in a great position to win. And as a lineup, it's just a testament to how good of a coach he is. The way that community has bought in. And you want to talk about communities buying in, we were at the knockout. We actually, funnily enough, stay in the same hotel as them. We know the way that they roll. They roll deep, and they love their boys. The Loveteers. I would love if that becomes a thing, but the Loveteers are a fantastic community of wrestling people, and it shows in the way that they wrestle. So I think that they are a top. They are head of 4A. They are walking in your favorites, not reigning and defending, because they didn't win in this class last year. So they're not reigning and defending, but they are your favorites. But the rest of 4A is, as I like to say, darts and popcorn, because from like I think Chestatee is number 2, but from like 3 to 7, just throw darts. They're all really close to each other. Sonoraville, West Lawrence, Heritage, Central Carroll, who has got hot recently. They have. You want to talk about a team that, kind of dark horse? I don't know if they have enough for duels. I just
I think
they, they
I think that's the fair question. Is like, look, I mean, with Ty Murray, Gabe Swan, and Colson Hoffman, and
Hoffman.
all of them, there's just score points on the traditional side.
Oh, for sure.
The
They're going to get
question
their bag.
is, in the duels, do they have all the spots?
Yeah, which is where a team like Troop and Walnut Grove to me are so fascinating because they're lower than Central Carroll, but a lot of their points comes from duels. Walnut is relatively well split. 2.9 of Troop's points come from duels. So you look at that and it's okay, if Troop catches Carroll or in sectionals, or if they catch the right draw, they really might be able to make a good run. Because how does a Troop and Heritage duel go? There's so many odd matchups there where it's like, oh, so these are kind of guys that aren't. It's and there's so many moves that could happen, obviously, in the moment of a dual meet. So it's tough to say when we're just speculating. But
Mhm.
Troop to me and Walnut Grove to me, those are two teams that you want to keep an eye on if you draw them, not only in your area, but if you draw them in your sectional, you better come ready to answer the bell.
All right, so let's jump to 5A. 5A, number 1 is Cass, 2 is Jefferson, 3 is Ola, 4 is Woodland, 5 is Flowery Branch, 6 is Greenbrier, 7 is Cambridge, 8 is McIntosh, 9 is Harris County, and 10 is Ware County. Ware County, I think, is the only team that is new. They weren't in the top 10 before. They're
Yep.
now in the top 10.
In
But
5A, they're the only new one.
in 5A. Sorry.
Yeah. They jumped Dalton and Locust Grove, who are now outside looking in, along with Calhoun and Cartersville, just outside the top 10. But I think the big story with 5A, well, okay, let's see. How well are we?
Is the big story with 5? I mean, really, honestly, 2 of the best teams, I mean, are Cass
Yeah.
and Jefferson. And
Cass has retaken their position as my number 1 pound for pound or class for class team in the state of Georgia. Their result at the knockout, topping Jefferson, Buford, who asterisk needed. It was not a full strength Buford, but topping them and then winning guerrilla warfare. While Jefferson had a fantastic showing at Holy Innocents, or Holy Angels, excuse me, not Holy Angel Innocents, that would have been Prep Slam. Ola's had some great results over the past couple weeks, as have Woodland, Flowery Branch. They went up to Holy Angels, added Greenbrier, but I think Cass is the team to beat in 5A in duels and individual. And while I think they might be more talented than Jefferson duels wise, or not, but if I was to just throw a dart, if you come to my head, make a pick now, I'm picking Cass. But they have some interesting matchup possibilities that I am salivating at the possibility of some of these matchups.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you because I think I don't know. I think you're right in terms of traditional, but I am wondering about the about duels, because I mean, I'm looking through Jefferson's lineup and how they match up with Cass, and whether they match up with Cass better in duels, especially Sammy Brown's back now. He was at 220, took second at Holy Angels. I mean, that's huge.
So the question is, what do you do with Cochran?
So I think that I don't know who Cass has at heavy, but I mean, right now Jefferson could put Cochran at 215 and Brown up at heavy, and they're winning both those matches.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's where I think this gets really fascinating. Is if you're Cass, how do you combat that? You have to take matches down low, which then you get into a scenario where you look at Lee Kent. Do you trust Kent versus Bellarden? Do you think you have it? So you see what, but the thing is, you don't want to give up the bonus there unless you think they're going to run Ballard. There's so many possible things that we'll probably jump into a really similar discussion in 7A if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. Like if you give me a minute to go to my matrix, if you should give me 1 minute. I have to insert something. Right now, my matrix spits out to me Cass as 2-point favorites.
Hmm.
If they ran it straight up, they would have Cass as 2-point favorites.
All right. So since you're in your matrix, what's that team further down in 5A that's a better dual team than they are traditional? That I don't know. I mean, they're not going to beat Cass or Jefferson, more than likely. But what's a team that is a good dual team down below?
Greenbrier is a deep team. I mean, if we just talk about guys and being like, you have Martinez, McDermott, Comer, and a couple other boys where they may not be your high end guys. They may not be your Jake Kratz. They may not be your Roman Billardos, your Dallas Russells of the world, if Sammy Brown, whatever. But they can bang with the best of them. They're tough. They're young. They're hungry. This Wolfpack team, they're looking for they're looking to really knock off some teams. And if you catch them in duels, you better be ready because that coaching staff is a really, really good staff as well. So you know that they're going to have a game plan set in motion. I'm really interested to see how Greenbrier gets on, especially with the region they're in. They're probably going to get a good run to the sectionals. But with some of these other regions, Woodland and Ola, Cambridge and the Harris, who are they going to draw at sections?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
And we don't know that right now.
Exactly, which means we're basically just throwing darts at multiple boards here. One's 10 feet away, one's 20, one's 30. So we're kind of looking at, we'll kind of see when it happens. Like that's all we got right now is.
All right, so let's jump to 6A. And number 1, and still number 1, Brunswick. 2, Woodward Academy, new number 2. We'll get to that in a second. Yep. Jackson County 3, South Effingham 4, North Forsyth 5, Lee County 6, South Paulding 7, Lassiter 8, Blessed Trinity 9, and Marist 10. 6A has perhaps the most change of any of the classifications.
Yep.
Why? Why has it got the most change?
Boy, it's a cluster. Like it's just like even at top, like I'm looking at Brunswick, and yes, they have still proved that at least to this point, they are a very solid and dominant team in the state of Georgia in the competitions that they've went to. But here's where things get interesting. Woodward Academy they didn't wrestle Spalding at Prep Slam.
I know. Yeah.
Which
I don't know that they wrestled DeHaven at Prep Slam.
They didn't wrestle a lot of their guys. And we're hoping for health, obviously. This is not like, I'm not saying this to, what I'm saying is a full strength Woodward, I think matches up pretty solidly with Brunswick. Not that they'll beat them, but they match up well where, look, it's Jeff Reagan. You can never trust him. And I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a good way because I love Jeff. I mean that in a sense of, he will do without, and he will make it work. He's done it time and time again, and he does when he has a lot. So we know he can win at both ends of it. But then you go down the list. Jackson County, South Effingham, who has popped up on my radar as a real contender. North Forsyth has had some great results. Lee County. The reason why Paulding dropped so much is their Paulding County duels result. Dropped a couple duels that I was like, ooh, that's rough. So I think that they're more of a traditional team anyways. So I'm not as surprised by that, but the Matrix was yelling to me and I was like, okay, so they have to drop. They're now in 7th. But again, don't necessarily take your eyes off them. They still got some dogs who can bang. So I don't know if they're really my dark horse team, but they are a solid outfit. Marist joins the top 10 after a good result at the Prep Slam. Shout out to Forrest. They're 106 pounder who I'm gonna need
Mhm.
someone to clarify a pronunciation on because he's solid. He's in my rankings for individual, which I will also post when these go up. But 6A is a really solid classification, but it's really solid in that I don't know what the hell is gonna happen.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's darts and popcorn. That whole class is darts and popcorn.
I agree with you. So, I mean, you just named a bunch of teams. I mean, Lee County, we've seen North Forsyth just took second at
Oh,
Holcomb to West Forsyth. South Effingham went up to South Carolina and won and has wrestled super great. Brunswick, Woodward Academy, Jackson County has done a ton. So, all those teams seem like they could be in the mix.
let me name you as well. Here are teams that are on my outside looking in. The way I do my outside looking in is within a point of 10th. That's how typically it works. With certain classes, like when we go down to 3A and 2A, I have to be a little bit more lenient. Here are all the teams outside looking in: Creekview Veterans, Noonan, Pope, Etowah, Alexander. So there's another 6 teams who it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I have zero clue because when Pope gets hot and they're led by Karpinski and the crew, they can make some noise. Creekview, obviously, every year just somehow finds a way to beat teams. And it's not like Veterans, you're led by a Latrell Schaefer, but obviously the question becomes, do you have more Alexander, Etowah, Noonan, who's been in and out of my rankings? It's 6A is just, it's a minefield. It, I'm going to make this. Whoever wins 6A might be the most battle tested team in the state in the sense of I don't think any duel in that state tournament is going to be a blowout.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could get that.
I think 6A might be the deepest A in the state, as in the sense of they have the tightest point spread of any classification from first to second, second to third. Their average point spread is 0.30, which is the lowest of any classification.
All right. So
So
let's jump to
yeah,
7A. Let's just to 7A. And let's
yeah.
go Buford's still 1, Camden's 2, Mill Creek's 3, North Paulding's 4, Lowndes is 5, West Forsyth is 6, Archer's 7, Brookwood 8, Colquitt County comes back in at number 9, and Richmond Hill is number 10. But probably the thing, and people can't see the numbers for the
They will
matrix,
when the rankings go up.
is that Buford and Camden both have 9.5.
Yes, because Buford has looked a little bit, I don't necessarily want to say weaker, but they have looked a
Well,
little bit.
they've had kids out.
And the thing is, I almost feel like it's been a blessing for them to have guys out. Hear me out, Buford folks. We have gotten to see some of these backups now get some real mat time because they're going to be necessary. Because you're going into a duel, in all likelihood, unless a Mill Creek or North Paulding or Lowndes comes out of nowhere, but look, I'm a writer for goodness sake. I'm into telling stories. So storytelling, you are in a, this is Taker Steve Austin 1997 Highway to Hell at SummerSlam. It is you two going at it in all likelihood with a state title on the line. If this happens, you know damn well Jess Wilder's going to have a move. Do we know what it is? No, because he hides his lineup for everybody. So we don't know the move, but he's going to have a move. And you need to be ready to combat that move. So getting to see some of these guys who don't necessarily get the same kind of mat time wrestle at the knockout, or in the case of a guy like Ty Gentry, getting to see him in the lineup at Holy Angels, and he wrestled competitively.
Oh, he wrestled great. Yeah, took out the number 2 seed.
I think that was vital to their hopes in the duels against them to see where they really stand. Because now you got a couple weeks to plan for this. You better be ready because we know how Jess Wilder comes. He is the reigning 7A dual state champions. You know they're going to come and they're going to come correct.
All right. So one thing that is interesting because we don't know the sections yet. And we know Mill Creek and Buford are in the same area. How much of a shame would it be for the loser of one of those two to go to Camden's section and then not be in the state tournament?
That's the one thing about these sectional dual meets is you have this possibility. And I'll do even one better. You got Lowndes, Colquitt, and Richmond Hill in the mix. And God forbid their draw is one of them. And it's like, well, there goes one of the deeper teams as well. And I'm not going to diss a team, but you got a team like a North Paulding who will get through their area rather clear. You know, the cup they'll get pushed, but in reality, they're
Right.
going to get through their area. And not say I'd rather it be that way, but it would really be a shame if a North Paulding, Mill Creek, or Buford catch each other or catch a Camden in sectional because of these area draws. I hate it for everybody involved. You obviously hope that the wrestling gods shine upon the day and make sure that the area draws play out correctly. You would hope, because what we don't want is a situation from last year where you got guys, let's say, playing with the order in which they would wrestle each other to get a desired outcome. We don't want that happening. But when we see this type of a system, can you all the way blame some of these coaches for it? I was a lot hotter about it last year, but after speaking to a couple people, I see where the frustration comes in. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
When should that they should they announce the sections prior to area, or should they wait?
I would wait.
And the
So
reason being is so that you can't manipulate it.
exactly. But the thing is, there's travel questions then of what happens if a team in the north now has to find a way to get down to, let's say, Valdosta in short amount of time. But then the counter is this system really usable over a long-term period? Because this was done for COVID. That's why this system was put in place, was to combat the mass of people for COVID. So it's almost like if the NBA stayed in the bubble, like, here's a COVID measure. We're just gonna stay there. Like, no, that's really what this is when you think about it. They made the measure for it's 12-man bracket. Same thing. It was done for COVID.
Yeah.
But
All right.
is it hurting the sport by doing that long term?
It's a good
And
question.
if we're going to talk about a dark horse, I think everybody's forgetting just how good Lions is. I know that they're not really that far down the top 10, but boy, in duels, when you got McCullough, and that's three that you have to deal with in the middle. And then you got some other spots where, hang on now, they can really wrestle. Like, if you catch Lowndes off of a section, oof, oof, like, you better be ready.
Yeah. All right. So let's go not to the girls first. Let's go to the class for class. And you already mentioned it, but Cass jumps back to 1, Buford's 2, Camden's 3, Jefferson's 4, Social Circle's 5, Rockmart 6, and they're another team that jumped up. Brunswick 7, Mill Creek 8. Lovett jumps in. I don't think they were in it last time.
I don't
At
think
9, and Ola was 10.
No, they were not.
So we've pretty much already talked about this in cast jumping, and we've already talked about Lovett and Rockmart to a degree in our conversations about the individual classifications. Any surprises, I guess, in the class for class?
I think the biggest jump has been Mill Creek from preseason to now. That they've jumped in that top 10, and they were a team that I feel like that this is a problem that a lot of people don't understand with me doing these rankings and the way I'm doing them. We knew Mill Creek going into the year. We knew they were going to be dangerous, and I said that they were, but I wasn't ready to crown them until I saw it for myself, and seeing them at Southern Slam, at the Knockout, at the Buford Invite at Lassiter. We've seen the way they've competed the entire season. I now we can put a number on them and say that this is where they stand. I think that they are a top 10 team in the state. I actually think that they match up really well against some of the other teams as well. I know this would be fantasy, but a duel against them in Rockmart or them in Social Circle, I'd be really interested in the idea of. But in totality, they're kind of a surprise. Love it jumped back in there because I'd seen good results, but seeing them at the knockout and seeing the way that they wrestled, I was like, oh, okay, they have to be there. Like I will admit, whenever there's a tie, it comes down to personal choice. Like that's where I make the so you look at 7A with Buford and Camden. I gave Buford the nod because they've seen better competition throughout the year. North Paulding and Lowndes, same thing. I gave the nod to North Paulding because they've went out, they've hunted that competition week in, week out. You know, I give Brunswick, Mill Creek, love it that order because I think I give Brunswick a little bit more of a nod. I think they match up better with them and their points are more evenly spaced out. And Mill Creek outplaced Lovett at knockouts. That gave them that nod. And then Social Circle, I think matched up real well with Rockmart and then Beeford Cannon. Yeah, but the cast back on top where they fought tooth and nail to re-earn that position. And I don't really see that changing unless Jefferson were to knock them off for a state title. That's the only way that that changes.
All right. So let's finish with the girls. And your number one team is Greenbrier. 2 is Chestatee. 3 is Carrollton. 4, Jackson County. 5 is Gilmer. 6 is Veterans. 7, Lumpkin County. 8 is Northside Columbus. 9 is Woodward Academy. And 10 is Columbus. And I think you don't have numbers out to the side, but if I were to guess, I would say the distance between 1 and 10 for the girls is much greater than it is on any of the boys' classifications.
Yeah, Greenbrier, Chestatee, and Carrollton have a solid lead. Then you got Jackson, Gilmer, Veterans is kind of that next tier for me. Even though Lumpkin's kind of teetering, not in a class of their own, but they're kind of stuck between where I don't know if they're going to jump a Veterans or a Gilmer, but I don't see them going below Northside, Woodward, Columbus. But once you hit like Northside, Woodward, Columbus, Harris County, and Jordan are all like real tight pack for me. It's just that Woodward seen really good competition, as did Columbus down at the knockout, which it was really cool to see the women's event this year. First time for me going. It was my first time going to the knockout, not competing there. So it was really cool to go down there and see that arena is really nice. Don't at me, Silver Spur over Macon Coliseum. Don't at me. I'm just speaking factually. Yeah, it was it's really interesting the girls' side of things.
Yeah, so the Greenbrier girls just went to Holy Angels and won Holy Angels.
Yes.
Had 3 champs. And one of the things that I think is really strong about Greenbrier, and honestly, this is where we go back, circling all the way back around to the very beginning of this conversation. I haven't seen a lot of Chestatee. I haven't seen a lot of the results. I don't know a lot from them. I saw Carrollton girls go, I think they went up to Tennessee and competed. We've seen the Jackson County girls compete. We've certainly seen the Greenbrier girls compete.
They've been everywhere.
So, it'll be it'll be interesting. I'm not 100% sure how that all plays out. We do have duels for the girls. Is that are you thinking, how close, I guess, are those top 3? Are they interchangeable, or are they?
I don't necessarily want to say they're interchangeable, but we've seen a couple results of Chestatee, and when we've seen them, they wrestle well. But the problem is, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, Chestatee, I had half a mind to drop because I just haven't seen them as much. Carrollton's wrestled tough. Jackson County's been everywhere, damn near. But Greenbrier, I think right now is your odds-on favorite, and it's one of those things where, speaking of girls, actually, hang on, before I need to make a comment because we had a Loveteer speak to us in the hall in the hotel. I also had Mr. Ann ask me a question. No, I'm doing that purposely. Okay. I love them. They know that. Shout out Ronan on Team Fat and Scrappy member this summer. Ronan, the 8th grader, because he's a killer. He's not doing girls' rankings individually until, I got to word this really carefully. I'm not ranking girls until their first tournament isn't the area meet. I'm not doing it because half of these weight classes would be ranked girl number 1, girl number 2, All right, on to the next weight class. Like, that's what I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, a lot of these weight classes, there's only like 6 or 7 girls that I really have any data from. So it's like, how do you rank that? You physically can't do it. It's
Yeah.
just not possible. Now, Georgia girls has grown exponentially in the past 2, 3 years. So I said it to Mr. Ron. Maybe in 2, 3 years I could start doing them, which I would love to. I wouldn't mind doing it, but I just can't right now. It's not possible. It isn't
Yeah.
for one reason or another. So,
All right,
but
man.
yeah, I think Greenbrier is your. I think that they're the favorites walking in.
So that is your New Year's rankings. Are you doing we're gonna do a duels like preview, so
Yeah,
that'll be in a couple weeks. And then are you gonna do one more ranking before we start traditional or
I
no?
probably will, but I don't know if we're gonna do a video. Like, I think what probably release wise, if I can see into the future momentarily, I do my best. My Zawardo powers sometimes are a little iffy. We'll do the duels preview like we always do. We'll do that. Then I'll release the post duel rankings. I don't know if we'll really do a video for that because in the grand scheme of things, it's just going to be dual order and then
Right, right.
yeah. So realistically, but then we'll do our individual state preview,
All right. That sounds good,
which
man.
I'm dreading that because I remember what we did last year, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm down for it, but I just rough.
Yeah,
What was it last year? 5 hours for that? What was that last year? 5 hours?
it was a long time. It was a long time. All right.
But yes, so I think that that's what we'll do, and then I'll do one kind of postseason wrap up ranking. That'll be more of a like just kind of season roundup more than anything.
All right. So that is Fat and Scrappy's top 10 in each of the classes and the girls, as well as a class for class. Lucas, I appreciate it. You've got a busy couple weeks coming up, and we'll
Yes,
talk
sir.
before the duels. Good luck to the Bruton Park for the Barons at Bruton Parker. And
I'm excited for him. It's been a year kind of wrapped with turmoil, injury wise. Look, it's college. Things happen to everybody, so it's the team's starting to come together. I'm excited to get back down there on the 8th. I'm excited for the team and everybody down there. It's a real cool time for Bruton Parker. We've had a couple real good dual results, getting some wins under our belt. Warren and John getting Bruton Parker's first dual win in nearly 2 calendar years at the Campbellsville Duels a couple weeks back, and getting a couple more under their belt. It's really cool. I'm excited to be a part of what we're building down in Bruton Parker.
all right, man. You take care.
Yes, sir.
Bye.